So hey there, and welcome back. I'm showing you a photo of copyright free that I received from Pixabay because I have made a decision on the direction I'm going with this cold wax design that I have put together. I'm going to try my hand at developing a face. So my vision for this, if you will, is going to be, the face with all the flowing hair, and the flowing hair will be, have leaves and different things flowing through it, kind of wild and free, intertwining with nature is probably a good way for me to think of it. So what I've been doing over here on the palette right now, and you can see some of the tubes of oil paint that I've gotten out, and same thing with the cold wax. I'll be mixing cold wax. And so I don't want a green and blue teal face is basically what I'm explaining here. So I'm going to be adding some flesh tones in that area so that when I get ready to do the features, I'll have a nice base. But I don't want it to be too perfect. I mean, I still want it to kind of blend with the background. So this is where I'm going to start. So I'm going to get some cold wax out now and mix up with my paint before I start this process, just like before. And now I'm just, spreading this over the approximate area of the face. And keep in mind, this is not going to be perfect. And also understand that the previous layers have all had a chance to dry. Because I don't want this application to mix with any of the previous layers. So usually overnight is when I can come back. But I always check it, just rub my finger across it and see what I pick up on my finger. And if I'm still picking up wax, then I know I need to give it a few more hours. In this particular case, I think it's actually been 3 days just because I had other things going on. So the rest of this video is just going to be me playing with some different values of the flesh tone for this area until I'm happy with it. I'm going to leave it at the regular speed because I want you to have the opportunity to see this as it happens in real time. But obviously, if you get bored, which I probably would, to be quite honest, you can just fast forward to the points that interest you. Now, in this particular section here, this is also something I wanted to point out in particular. I put on some darker value, and once I got it spread in, I didn't like it. So what you can do when your previous layers are dry is you can just get in there You'll see me do this. I'm going to wipe off my tool, and I tried going over it with a little bit of a lighter color to see how that would work. It's all about experimentation, right? Still not happy, so do you see what I did? I just scraped it off. And I didn't really harm the layer underneath because it's nice and dry. So now I'm just going to kind of go back and pick up a little bit more of that lighter value and mix in and cover that area back over. Easy peasy. Very, very forgiving. So in this case, I kind of didn't want to lose all of that little bit of a green that shows through. So I started playing around with some textures to see, lifting. Basically, I'm lifting off some of that wet wax, and then I'll smooth it back down. So again, it's all about that experimentation, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and that's what I was doing here. So at this point, I decided I wanted to try rolling on some of this flesh tone. So I got out my nifty little roller, as you can see, and did just that. And I have to say, I did kind of like that. I like that, the coverage it gave me, and it just feels like it kind of softened some things. And anyway, I was very happy with that. So at this point, I decided I wanted it to be, have a little more integration. Excuse me. At this point, I wanted the face to be a little more integrated into the background. So I'm taking some of the background colors and applying it around the edges of the face. I'm really just, like I said, I'm just trying to soften so that we don't have, that hard line. I want more of a transition piece, especially into the hair, but even on the opposite side of the face, I just don't really want that really hard line there. So I decided to use my palette knife, and yep, I'll go back and forth between the flesh tone and the green tone and see what I come up with here. So things start to get really crazy here because what I decided was I needed more texture. Things were too smooth. So you can see I'm using the palette knife and kind of doing more of a patting rather than a sliding to kind of maintain some of those textures. And well, just watch. Things are really going to get crazy from here. really starting to build the textures here. Layer upon layer upon layer. Now you have to have a light touch because, as we've talked about, if the under layers are soft and wet, things will mix and slide around pretty easily. So when you want to do this, when you want to do some layers while the underlying layers are wet, that's the key, is just keep your touch light and try not to dig in and apply a lot of pressure, which will then cause you to start mingling with those previous layers, if that's your goal. So at this point, I have lost again some of my, shadow areas on either side of the face and the softening of those edges. So I'm going to go back and reestablish those. Now, one of my absolute favorite things to do is to get out my stencils at this point and have some fun. And again, going back to the texture that I wanted to see on that face. Now remember, that's very mushy and wet right now. So I decided to try an experiment, and I'm just now I'm trying to figure out what stencil I want to try to use. And you'll see here in a minute my selection. Because again, I'm trying to stay with this whole nature theme. So here's another one, and I decided that's the way I want to go. Now this is a dry roller. I'm really just pressing this into the wet wax. Now, you might be able to discern a little bit of that texture, but I found it quite intriguing, and so I decided to leave it. But again, there's nothing on the roller. I'm just basically pushing that stencil into that wet wax and then pulling it off, leaving all of those textures behind. And of course, the stencil picked up a little bit of that wax. And so now I'm just playing around with what would happen if I now press that into other places. Not really much, but you don't know till you try. So I liked what I saw, so I decided now I would go ahead and load the roller with some wax and try that approach as well. And now again, softening edges just by kind of rolling out whatever's left on my roller. So now I'm just going to continue to play with some more stencils, more wax, and my roller, and just see what happens. Here, I decided to try putting some more of my favorite little circles in that area of the hair. I'm not going to use the roller this time. I have these little makeup sponges that I got off of Amazon, and they work really, really well for applying the colored wax into the stencil itself. Now, unfortunately, what happened here is my background wasn't really dark enough to make this show. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second when I lift this back off. Not so much. There's a few there, but not as much as what I would have liked to have seen. So I decided to add a little more dark. And I decided also to try a different stencil. You'll see me pick that up in just a second. Now again, remember, all of that layering that's currently in the hair has dried, so I'm not really, that's why sometimes when I slide that palette knife over top, like in that area where the little leaves were, you'll see that texture still shine through because that's dry. So this time I decided I would use a darker wax. But I'm still going to use the same technique. And the other thing I like about that sponge is it gives you more control over how much or how little of that stencil you use. And I realized my was kind of out of view for the camera, but I do this in a couple of places, so you'll get to see more of this. And from this point forward, I'm really just going to be, it's all about playing, and I'm just going to add some different stencils, and I'll keep what I like, what I don't like. I can use the either the roller or the spatula or the palette knife to, get rid of anything that I don't like, cover up anything I don't like. And I know this was a long video, and if you stuck with it, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed what you saw, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button, and you can even hit the little bell if you would like to be notified when I post new videos. And again, thank you so much for watching. Please leave comments and questions. I'm happy to explain more about the process if you would like. And I hope you have a fabulous day.